My first question is, how can companies, especially the private companies that I'm talking about, effectively communicate with the public about their missions, goals, and achievements to increase public interest and support? And whoever would like to go ahead with that, feel free to volunteer and go ahead. Sure, Aya, go ahead.
Definitely, it's a great question, actually. So in my opinion, that the organizations can make use of social media in a variety of ways. And there are well-known examples of social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And actually, social media can take many different forms that could be engaging or educational, such as posting podcasts, pictures, and videos about your company. But actually, I want to emphasize on different something here. The power of having a visionary leader talking about the business vision on social media is unbelievable. And I'm sure we have seen this in lots of business cases. For example, Elon Musk has numbers of followers more than his company's profiles. And this is because people love following people. And I personally noticed this when I joined SigmaFit. Mr. Amr Munayir is the CEO of SigmaFit, and he is a highly visionary leader. And he is leading a multi-million-dollar company driven by important vision is to dress humans on Mars. He is always talking about this vision and about the company long-term goals. And the result is he has got thousands of followers believing and aligned around this powerful vision. So again, if you are a leader, pay attention to your personal brand and try to stick to a vision that really touches the people, because we as humans love the feeling that we are powerful and we are capable of achieving huge things. And I'm sure that this could make the public more interested in the space sector when they see this type of interesting and powerful visions.
Wonderful. Those are great points, Aya. And I see Trupti wants to add. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Trupti. I'm from Florida Tech, and I also work in the industry at Collins Aerospace and part of a bunch of other organizations. So coming from my background, I'm getting a PhD in aerospace, and I have been very focused in the technical aspect of things that I almost lost track. I did not know how important social media or this quick communication plays in terms of expanding space exploration, right? And so one of the things was battling how to get publicity for our research lab. And we tried many different methods. And for a startup company, I have my LLC, and to get public attention, one of the things that has helped us out is to come up with these short stories. To add to Aya's statement, obviously you want to go ahead and have this vision and put that vision forth and try to get attention, but also it is very important to reach people that do not understand technical jargons, right? So create small stories create some sort of animations and try to get their attention and use different filming techniques that has gotten very popular. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a very fair point. As I also mentioned, and Trupti, obviously, social media is very important. And we see that, in NewSpace, all of those companies, I think all of them have social media. But the problem we see, again, is what also Trupti just slightly touched upon, is the way that they communicate with individuals with the social media, all this technical, very complex concepts that they're sharing. So how can they be more, let's say, how can they make their communication channels more general and more appealing to the general audience, everyday individuals, to individuals that are involved in citizen science or just space, activism? So how can they make it more appealing to them, and just so that they understand it better? And maybe Meredith can take that one, and then we can move on to Felipe and Kelly as well, and we'll.
Yeah, I would kind of walk it back a little bit. I think it's easy to get focused on channels, and I absolutely think that that's a great way to figure out how to connect with your audiences. But, I think that there's a fundamental issue with consistently communicating impact and outcomes. And I think when you're, especially when you're, a company in this sector, primarily you're dealing with B2B audiences, right? And so I think it's really easy to get focused on communicating to that audience, which doesn't necessarily take your impact and outcome all the way out to the individual, right? So what I mean by that is if you're an in-space manufacturing company and you're focused on developing drugs in microgravity, your customer is the pharmaceutical company. And so it's really easy to focus on messaging to that customer. But the reality is that the impact of the work that you're doing has a real potential to improve the lives of people that are on Earth today. And I think that that's kind of the continuum that we need to be thinking about so that we can take away the kind of futurism and how abstract space development seems right now to the average person. There's got to be an impact, and I think it's important to add that not every company has the value of being able to communicate a direct impact to the public, the general public. So, when you're a company that's working on propulsion or you're working on, space domain awareness, then what you have to do is talk about the impact that you're having on the development, and exploration of space for purposes of enabling things like scientific discovery that can impact a full range, there are full range of things that will help us with on Earth, whether that's, managing, moving pollutant industries into space, whether that's understanding what's happening for climate change purposes, whether that's creating jobs. So there are a lot of other impacts that you could be having, even if you're one removed.
Perfect. That's obviously that's the truth. I mean, we cannot disagree with that one. And I'd love to hear what Felipe has to add on that. And I see Sabrina has also joined us. So hi there, Sabrina.
I am engineer, and normally my intervention is more on the deep technology. And today I'm an advisor for many NewSpace in Europe and also in USA. And I understand very quickly, if you don't start with communication, you lose everything. And this is key point. And don't forget, 90% of the people buying a car today don't know the technical points of this car. You buy a service. And this is the very fundamental point. If you don't understand communication, if you don't explain very clearly what you are, where you want to go, you missed the target. It's finished for you. And this is why today I start all my NewSpace to take time, do a very nice website, very clear, very complete, and very good networking with the social network. If you don't beginning with this, it's not necessity to continue.
Absolutely, and we see that happening also with the space companies. Sometimes they just don't fully understand the value of communicating, again, their value proposition and just the projects that they're working on. But we see some government programs that are doing very good job at that. For example, like NASA. Probably any country you go, you're going to find NASA t-shirt, NASA hats all across the place out there, and their presence on social media is huge as well. So. So the thing is, how do we also raise awareness of the companies that they really need to be doing that? That's also another question from my side. And maybe Sabrina can take that as well, and then Kelly also is raising the hand as well. So
I actually think that it's a really interesting sort of step back to, there is a value in emphasis on communicating your values, your technology, to the public. Like, I love doing talks for students at third level, university students. We're very active with women in STEM, and I love to explain to people that, stuff that we use every day comes out of space technology. Your ability to reverse your car with your backup camera and have a sensor that tells you how close you are to hitting your garage door is a piece of space technology that has been brought down to Earth. The fact that we can reduce radiation in X-rays is thanks to space technology. There are all kinds of incredibly interesting applications of space technology to day-to-day life. And I actually find it, people love space, okay? Like, the entire planet is hot for Mars, and you cannot get, everybody from 6 to 60 years old is so enthusiastic about space that we actually had to change our communications because we did nothing at the National Space Center to attract the general public because we're a commercial enterprise in the B2B sector. And 98% of the people who follow us are consumers, and many of them are parents of 8-year-olds. And all they want is, but it's been a big switch for us to embrace that. Like, you go where there's no point in not having people love you. There's no point in doing that. So, for National Women's Day, out we go with the women astronaut color and the astronaut thing, like whatever, it doesn't matter as long as it makes your space program approachable from the general public. And I think that what that means is that there's a roll-on effect that if you pay attention now to making it interesting and welcoming and approachable for people who are very young and just getting interested, you actually have that rare thing in communications, and it's a trickle up theory of communications distribution. And I love that about space. I love being able to capitalize on that inherent interest that people have.
Perfect.
I also don't remember. I don't remember what the question was, but that's an answer.
No, that you answered it and quite well as well. And Kelly also wanted to touch upon that point. So please go ahead, Kelly.
I wanted to say everything that people have already said, but I was just going to echo what Philippe said. I just learned this myself, that when somebody goes onto a website, you literally have 5 seconds to say what you want to get out of that website. 1,002. I mean, that's really fast. So that's hard to begin with. I had to remind myself that. So I think that's a really important point. But just to echo really what everybody was saying, and my background's actually not in space, it's in media and documentaries. So I'm really a storyteller, but there's a lot of, I think, old-fashioned rules that you learn in storytelling that applies to all of these things. But the one little spiel I was thinking about this panel, and I have a hard time remembering things, so I have to do it in threes. And for me, space has to always, the message should always be about the 3 E's. And one is Earth, Earth, because everything you do in space should have some kind of reflection. I think the public will get jazzed about that if it has some kind of reflection back on Earth. So it can even be looking at Uranus or wherever, far interstellar stuff, as long as it's like, it has some application here on Earth. And that's, everybody knows we can do that. So the other E was, it's got to be emotional, and that's a storytelling thing. I mean, that's the idea of like, what's at stake, you're taking a picture of Earth observation, Earth, but what's at stake? You're looking at a typhoon that's coming, there's a lot of like emotion that you have to always build into a story, whether it's a posting on the web or a video. And then I'd say the last one is another E, which I had to look up this word because I had to look up something that started with E that meant concise, clear and concise. And it was epigrammatic, I think that's the word, which actually is just like a fun little pithy, interesting thing to say. And really that actually, I thought, oh, that's actually what it really is about. But what I guess I'm trying to say is that, we have to always remember that, like, you can only say so much in so little time. You're always having to like vie for people's attention. So instead of trying to say a lot of things all at once, it's maybe, hit people with one concept that can just like stick in their head. And I think that's something those are the 3 things that you can always remember. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's yeah, exactly. The 3 E's. I love that. The fact that you also went and searched for the word that starts as an E for the third one. That was that was great as well. So Meredith, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add one E, because I think that's genius, Kelly. I think empathy. Empathy is really important. I would add a 4th E, because I think that, everything you just framed is exactly right. And I think adding to that is this idea of really thinking about what it is that people want and need in the context of telling these stories. And if you can build that in, then you've really got the full set.
And what Kelly also mentioned regarding the media background that she has, right? So that's another important thing. There's when you have the first 5 seconds, as Kelly said, also another point, to capture really individuals' attention. So how do you believe, I would like to ask the panelists and whoever would like to take this question, how can space companies make sure that they, so sorry, what happened? There's some glitch here, just a second. Excuse me for that. Yeah, all right. So basically the question here is how can space companies leverage the media, how they can attract the media attention, and then how can they leverage the media reach to actually get the individuals involved and understand really what concepts and what exploration or what space generally does for Earth or other services and why it's important for them. Sure, Trupi, go ahead.
One of the things that I find very popular, just being around people who are very interested in films and, something that Kelly also kind of added based on her background, is like getting film actors, something that NASA has been doing lately, bringing film actors to talk about, ask like very, not dumb, but like very generic questions about like, why do we need space? Like, why do we need satellites? So starting from that, and because they already have a fan base. And so now them asking those questions they're going to start attracting their audience to listen to these discussions about the space industry and why satellites are important, why do we need to explore. And now the increasing trend is like a very popular thing that's going on is social influencers. We see people with hundreds and almost million followers that not even some of the LLCs or like some of the companies that are actually putting satellites in space have. And so how do we like getting them to, talk about their products and the importance of space exploration? That's a really good way. I believe it's a really good way to bring in more followers and audience.
Wonderful. And I see Will is nodding a lot, so he's agreeing with everything that the panelists are saying, even though he has not yet commented anything. He was speaking, I believe. So Will, can you please give us again your background and just generally what are you working on and how is that important in terms of the outreach and just increasing this interest from general audience in the space industry? So can you share us with that about that?
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. This has been awesome. I've agreed with everything because it's all 100% true. I guess I could consider myself an influencer on Instagram, TikTok, whatever those little weird platforms are. I'm mostly an amateur astronomer who was just started filming what we were doing out in the dark deserts of West Texas or wherever we're at, putting it out there and letting it become a part of the social media, what was happening at that point. And everything y'all said is very true. One thing I think that is also very powerful is music. If you have really good music, think of your favorite film, Forrest Gump or Interstellar or whatever. Take the music out and it would be lost, right? So music is a very powerful thing. Maybe in the ease, we can add entertainment. I don't know, entertainment value to that, which draws people in. People have low attention spans. Again, the 5-second rule. And on TikTok and Instagram, that's about what you get. You get about 2 or 3 seconds sometimes when people are just really scrolling, right? So on Instagram and TikTok, my approach is shorter videos of deep sky objects, the moon or the sun or whatever, mixed with a little bit of my own music, which is kind of a way to double dip there. And it's been pretty successful, and what I love is that people like NASA, the organization NASA has the NASA Social program, which is something that if you've never heard of NASA Social, you should definitely look into it. It's a very powerful program where they reach out to influencers, pretty much only influencers, right? No actors in this sector. And those influencers get invited out to look at Artemis 1, like the core stage. I was in Mishu, the assembly facility, looking at Artemis 1, just because I had a social media account. It was crazy, like why they brought me out there. It was nuts. But look into those programs because those are very powerful. They bring in people from the beauty sector, from fashion, from art, music. And those people have already curated their audience, like y'all had said earlier. And so NASA is looking to get that information out through those sectors. And it seems like it's pretty effective. And that's a great program to look at and kind of use as a model.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. So just to build on that, I want, in addition to the value of the audio, which I think is such a strong point, and it goes back to the point about music does such a good job of evoking emotion, which goes back to the storytelling, and it really builds the momentum for the story that you want to tell. But I also think that we are in the incredibly fortunate position at the National Space Center. We have a 32-meter radio telescope on campus. It's one of 8 left in the world. It's not currently in use. It's sort of just parked in the upright cup position. It has nothing to do with our logo. It is the absolute best ambassador for our commercial program that you could ever ask for. I mean, it just sits there. We paint it once a year so it doesn't rust. It is an incredible photo backdrop. And specifically going back to Nicholas's question about press, what I would say is that it's very difficult to get a good message and communication strategy out through the press without really strong visuals. So, I am constantly trucking my CEO up to the top of a cliff that overlooks this dish, so you can take photos of him with this massive dish in the background. And it's incredible. But we've done all different kinds of things. We put artists up on ladders. We've piled up space junk for an in-house arts residency program that we did. And we just sort of put a bunch of artists literally in a field of space junk and had press photographers come out and shoot them. Like, whatever you can do to make the immediate visual connection with your audience will get the ultimate audience, but also the journalists interested in covering your story. Like, they want to do space, but it's hard for them to talk about space if all they can do is talk and not show. And being able to be the ones to provide those really strong visuals has worked so well for us. And I can't recommend that enough. Working with official press photographers and going through to photo editors at the publications you want to be in, it's amazing.
I really agree to that point, Sabrina, especially earlier today, we had a presentation by a NASA individual, and he was presenting the Artemis 1 again program, and the visual aspect was very important. He had some of the videos which have not yet been published. So it was like, kind of closed off situation for our event that he presented. And it really made me personally, and I'm sure to other attendees also, really connect and really feel that we were part of that mission, like personally, right? So that's, I believe, very important to the point that you made as well. I saw that Camilo was raising his hand, and I'm not sure if he's with us. Camilo, yes, now we can see you. Hi there. Good to have you as well on the panel.
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening in, and I just wanted to say hello and agree with what everybody is sharing, because I think everybody has very good points. And I just wanted to add a few notes for a little bit of background. My name is Camilo. I work in the aerospace industry for 10 years now, building spacecrafts for SpaceX and Blue Origin now. And recently we established an organization, myself and my brother, called Space United, and we're trying to do a lot of the things that everybody here is mentioning, and how to be effective communicating the story about space, how to make it exciting, how to make it relatable to students, because I think that's one aspect that sometimes space lacks, which is that relatability. We always talk about some terms that are very hard to grasp, right, from the physics perspective, and a bit out there, right, out there in space, that people have a hard time bringing it back to Earth. And how like kids ask me, well, how does that impact me, right? Like, why does that matter to me? So I think that we have been working on that with Space United, and I heard a little bit about entertainment, which I think is also an important aspect of how we can make things relatable to the young audiences, so that they can be connected to space in a relatable fashion. And particularly for us, we found sports to be that avenue that we can connect. And I think it's been key to how do we connect space to things that already exist and can relate to individuals, right? So for us, it's been sports. And in fact, a number of us have been working on the development of sports in space. Like, how is that going to look like in the future, in 5 years, 10 years from now? And we found that through that conversation, we get a lot of interaction and engagement with students, because they love sports, or they have a favorite athlete, and we speak that language. And so we let a little bit on the sidelines, the space jargon, and we kind of bring them more in the entertainment aspect. And obviously we throw in the space, right, as part of this whole package. But it's been very exciting. I think so far we've connected with 10,000 students all over the world through sports, and that's sort of like the hook essentially. But yeah, I just wanted to maybe bring that topic in, because sometimes it may not be through space that you connect with someone.
Absolutely. So Kelly, please go ahead. I see you raising the hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, by the way, great to meet you, Camilo. I did give your website to somebody who's a big soccer fan here in the United States, and they want to sign on. They want to come help.
Awesome. Yeah.
About space. So it works. It really works. I mean, who doesn't like football around the world? Everybody likes that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah,
So Camilo, how can I sign up as well?
Yeah, so we currently have 5 clubs, 4 in the US. We have 2 clubs international, one in Madrid, Spain, and one in South America, in Colombia. But it's a community of space people, space enthusiasts, space workers, and then we also do a lot of community outreach with education. And the clubs have been expanding, and so yeah, if you want a club in your city, let me know, and then we can make it happen.
Perfect. All right, we can make that happen.
I wanted to say also the other thing about what's great about his program, that it's I don't know how you guys phrase it on your website, but it's something that relates to space in general. It's why I always got attracted to this field, is it's the international aspect.
Yeah.
We sometimes forget, like, even whether you're a scientist or engineer, we all know here, I'm in the United States, but it's very international, the whole industry. And I think that actually is I hate to sound corny, but it's a way to build peace and build bridges and things like that. And it's another nice element to like build into the space story that I think would resonate with some people for sure.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to also say about with the influencer folks, because I'm very old school. I can barely get it together with social media, and I always am like listening, because I'm like, how do I do this? But I was going to say, I know it's good to have like celebrities and well-known people and influencers, but I think also, I mean, if we're speaking to NewSpace folks and people running businesses, don't underestimate also the interestingness of themselves and the work that they're actually doing. You just got to put it in a way that makes it sound interesting. And when I listen, the woman just spoke in Stella Kafka, I was at the end there and I was like, oh my God, I wish I'd listened to this because it's so amazing. This is crazy. I can't believe people are found a rogue planet. I didn't even know that. So I think, it's always important to remember that you don't always necessarily have to have a celebrity, as much as the amazing work that everybody's doing is, I think, very fascinating for the public.
Perfect. And while we were on the theme also with what Camilo was saying with the sports, and again, resonating that also with the audience. So as space industry is still relatively like a niched industry, it's a smaller industry if you compare it to other industries like real estate or tech or, VC and finance industries out there, right? So how can, because this is a competition, we're still competing as a space industry for attention, we're competing for the, having fans, and how can space industry, what lessons can space industry learn from, let's say, other industries like entertainment and sports to, build this loyal fan base for itself?
The new space today is very, very dynamic. You don't imagine. Free new space is created in USA every 3 days. And one by week in Europe is very huge. And you have also all the sector is impact, agriculture, education, everything. It's very huge market. You don't imagine. And it's because you can't compare today space activity like automobile or other sector. It's very huge. And only communication is the single point to make the difference, because too many systems, too many new creation. If you don't have a very good strategy in communication, you lose. This is the point.
Sure, Aya, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with you. And my opinion on this is, the short answer is to create a community around your brand. So engaging with your fans and creating conversations is a meaningful way to do so. So you can create interest on social media through polls and competitions, for example. This promote the brand and encourage people to share content with their friends. And a perfect example for this is NASA. NASA logo is everywhere on t-shirts, on bags, and even accessories. So everybody wears the logo of NASA, and this creates millions of fans for NASA, even if they are not in the space industry. So create a community around your product, people who can engage, talk, and be inspired by your vision. Like Elon Musk, we are all big fans of him because he created an inspiring vision to send people to Mars. So this makes us feel that we are, as humans, we are capable of achieving anything in life. Like, as you said, in the sports industry, they have clubs, they have events gathering at, and they even have their special songs. So create a community around your brand. This is a crucial, I think, crucial strategy we can take from the sports industry.
Mhm. Perfect. That's a fair point. And I see there's a question in the chat as well. So this one is interesting. What are some of the common misconceptions about NewSpace that effective public communication can help address? And I will go ahead and name the first one, which is definitely the misconception that everybody thinks that space is only for engineers and for the scientists and for the technical individuals, which is definitely not the case. So that's the one. And I would love to hear the panelists' input on this. What are some of the other misconceptions that you believe that through effective communication can be again solved? Sure, Kelly, go ahead.
I know I don't want to like overtake, but like beef I have. I would say, I mean, we love Mars, we love the moon, we love space. I love rogue planets as well, but I'm going to contradict myself. It goes back to the 3 E's. It's got to be about Earth. I mean, I know a lot of really amazing, smart people that know nothing about space, and they still don't conceptualize the fact that they get their directions on their phone, and where does that come from? It's satellites, right? So there's such basic things that I think even a smart public misses all the time. And as somebody who's not grew up in this world, I can see it every time, and I still have to find myself convincing people. So I don't think everybody loves looking at rocket ships blasting off. It sounds exciting, going to the moon, but then how do you get people to think about back here on Earth, like what, everything that we do on the International Space Station, for example, whether it's you're creating, cooperation internationally, or you're testing new drugs, or you're finding new technology to advance. I think that gets missed often. And right now, what's the big new space companies? A lot of it is communications and satellites right now. That's where I assume that's where the money is. I could be wrong. I'm not a business person, but I think that has always got to keep pushing that back. I think that gets missed. Space is also about Earth.
Perfect. So Camilo would like to go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just to add a couple points. So yeah, I think two things. The misconception that if we are investing in space, then I always hear a lot of comments that why are we not investing in improving Earth, which that's the main one that I always hear back. So it's trying to really communicate the fact that we're doing this for the benefit of Earth. Exactly what you mentioned, Kelly. That it's exploring space is for the benefit of Earth. So that's the first one. And then for me personally, I am from South America. I grew up in South America, in Colombia. And there's maybe this misconception that it maybe is based on some situational status, that maybe space is only for a selected few countries, right? Because they have the resources, like the US and Europe, primarily like the big players. But how do we convince other countries and students all over the world that it's actually spaces for everyone, and regardless of the financial strength of a government or country to get involved with the technology itself, there's other ways to get involved with space, and then it just takes like that momentum from a culture perspective, and I think eventually it could get to other countries can participate, but. I think that's been one thing for me. Like, how do I go back to my home country in Colombia and convince students that they too can have a part in space? Because they don't even imagine it. I didn't even conceive it. because I only thought of this in the movies, and like you mentioned NASA quite a bit. That's the only thing I heard when I was in South America. I heard NASA, and that's it. And in the movies, I never imagined I would work in this industry. So maybe that one misconception. How do we get it to more people?
Perfect. All right. So Meredith, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree with everything that was just stated. I would say we have to be really explicit too, though, about exactly what the benefits are, right? So it's not enough to say there are benefits or it advances our scientific, knowledge here on Earth. I think we need to be really clear about the impacts to medicine, the impacts to energy, the impacts to transportation, to communications. I mean, we have impacts relative to, being able to globally network so that, developing countries have internet access. So there are, which directly impacts regional economies and helps them grow and addresses things like poverty and healthcare and starvation. So, again, I think that being explicit about exactly what the impacts are is really, really important here.
Absolutely. And I see the panel time is nearing to an end, which is very sad because I feel like we could go for another couple hours in discussing all these issues. But the next question that I have is, and maybe we will wrap up with that one, is what are some of the biggest mistakes that we see the space tech CEOs that they are making? And I believe one of these mistakes is that in many companies in NewSpace now we see that, especially with the bigger corporations, it's usually the case, at least from my standpoint, that the CEOs, they are behind the desks and you don't really see them acting out and you don't really see them, taking up the mantle and, really speaking and communicating their values to the general audience as well. So what would be the other mistakes that, like, maybe Meredith, we can start with you and then get a couple of words from each panelist as well.
Mistakes that CEOs make?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking generally?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that may have come from a question that I sent to you, right?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's a fair point. So I decided.
we spend a lot of time advising startup companies in the space sector and emerging tech generally. And I think a couple of the mistakes that we see them make are not being willing to kind of put themselves out there to really forge a clear vision. I think it's easy to get stuck in the tech and down in the weeds of the tech and not being able to, be willing to put yourself out there with a vision, to provide some inspiration, really make that connection between your technology and the inspiration that should be giving to, not just the B2B audiences, but the consumer audience as well. I think one of the other mistakes that we see CEOs making is not kind of translating technical concepts into something that's really understandable and digestible. There are a lot of, I think, especially when you're dealing with like commercial and government audiences, there are a lot of acronyms that are used that just make all of this information difficult to digest and understand. We have a rule that first of all, you have to lead with empathy and really understand who you're talking to and don't assume what they know. And this goes for even technical audiences like venture capitalists. You cannot assume that a venture capitalist will understand all of the technology that you're explaining to them. Some of this stuff is really, really technical. So, I think those are a few of the mistakes we see. Our general rule of thumb is, most of the people on this panel, I assume your mother is probably really smart. And I would say, make sure you can explain it to your mom.
All right. So Camilo wanted to go ahead, as I see. I think you're on mute. Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. Maybe the last comment to that, I think space companies should also come forward and be vulnerable, show the mistakes that are happening along the way, because all that stuff is actually interesting and it's exciting. When you see a test failure, and I think SpaceX does this quite well, where they're very vocal about what they're doing, and it's fun. It just creates community. People would like to watch it and they like to cheer. It's almost like you get excited looking at these tests happening live. And I think more companies, I think it's changing, but more companies are now taking that approach where you recently saw Relativity Space trying to launch their 3D printed rocket, and they're fun broadcastings. They had some issues and they're sort of candid about it. And so I think being vulnerable, showing that you fall and you stand, you know, you get back up. I think that goes a long way when you're trying to communicate that story.
Absolutely. I think Felipe wanted to add something, if I'm not mistaken.
The market's changed completely, you know. At the beginning, 80% of this market is purely telecommunication and maybe observation of Earth and GPS or something like that. Now, applications are more and more increased, and you have the possibility to obtain some application without this free big topic. And this is the deal. If you communicate very well through satellite is just a tube. That's it. And now you can go to education, to health, to a lot of application is very, very interesting. It's because the market is very huge. And today everybody can take a part of space. And this is the new deal. And it's very accessible also. SpaceX is the key point. He starts NewSpace. He explained without nothing, you can start and you can go very fast. And this is very impressive.